It's a little bit of a hassle because she doesn't like necessarily being held for very long. But I wanted you guys to see Shani. Say hi, baby. Say hi. Hi. You can kind of see this is her hip that got operated on. And you can barely tell. Her fur is basically fully grown back in. But for those who are here early, I wanted you guys to see her trying something new. Normally she's in her crate when I stream. We're going to try it without. So hopefully she's good. Come on, baby. There you go. I know. I broke a rule. Oh, man. Okay. Yeah, she's doing really good. Although she's got a bunch of energy because she's all excited. I had to trick her to pick her up because normally she thinks most of the time when she's being picked up that if she's not on a leash, she thinks she's going to get put in her crate. And she's, ever since her surgery, she's basically almost not been in the crate at all. Because it's easier for her to just lay comfortably around my room, right? Whether it's on the floor or a little doggy bed, all sorts of stuff. Eventually, when she healed up enough, she started jumping in this recliner I have over here that's like her favorite thing in the world, or on the bed, which is pretty recent. She's only been jumping back up on the bed for like the last month, maybe? And yeah, you filled up the water somewhat. Yes, I did. You're correct. It was getting too low for the sponge. It was time to top it off. Plus, I had time today. But yeah, I wanted to show everybody Shani for a minute. I had to trick her. I see you smiling. It's over there, big doggo smile. Okay. So, I'm gonna. This will be a little different than usual. So I have a set of notes. I need to bring them up. I have kind of like a notebook of various videos in my head. Just when I get ideas, I jot them down quickly. Eventually, when I have a better, quotation marks, better space, I'll probably have like a permanent whiteboard that is my like random ideas or maybe schedules of things I need to film. I'm not sure. But I wanted to talk with you guys briefly. I almost, by the way, canceled stream tonight because my club has a board meeting, and I was pondering being at that board meeting as kind of backup to another member who's taking something I care about, so to speak, to the board as a proposition, which is just some of us would like to see our membership polled. Not necessarily because we specifically want change. We just think that there might be an underlying benefit to change. Of changing our meeting night from Tuesdays to like some other day based on what the membership votes on. Because there's, GSAS has something like 380, 400, somewhere around there, active members. But when you go to a meeting, like you'll top out at 60 or 70 people that show up. And part of it is because it's like getting to basically downtown Seattle on a Tuesday evening and then fighting all that stuff getting home for the people that are much farther north or south in Washington. There'd be people, I would imagine, people who come all the way from Portland for meetings if the right speaker was there, if it was on a weekend. So yeah, it's kind of rough, right? So needless to say, like I had some conversations with a few different people, and it kind of reaffirmed some things that I've thought about. So I was kind of like trying to get the board to pull our membership. I'm not on the board, although the board invites me to a lot of stuff because they've wanted me to be on the board for a long time, but I've typically just been too busy. It would be like if I was on the Fish Club board, I wouldn't be able to do my other YouTube stuff, basically. And I was like, no. Yeah, Guppy Girl, I've tried fighting the fight for lower cuts at monthly auctions as well when I was in charge of monthly auctions, and didn't go so well. But it's one of those things where, like, I just think if it was on a weekend, you would see significantly more turnout to a lot of our meetings, especially with some of our big speakers. Which maybe that's maybe it's built in as a protection because the space is only so big. But I don't know. Anyway, a friend is fighting that fight, and I'm here, and I have a different thing I want to talk to y'all about. Which is to say, I have a bunch of different ideas for after we get through the Keystone Clash stuff and the back and forth of your filter sucks versus your filter's awesome. I'm going to be finishing that series of things. And yeah. Oh, this Greg Jones actually. Okay, I'll go with this for a sec. Just Greg Jones, I think you have this is a similar thought to what I have, which is that weekday meetings are impossible if you work or have a family, only possibly for retired folks. Weekend meetings with live stream for paid members is the only way. Yeah, we're certainly capable of doing a lot of that stuff. Our club is fairly technically savvy. We do a lot of really good stuff. We do recorded videos and things like that so that people can at least see the talk afterward. We've had a number of amazing talks that if you're a member, you've access to those things. They're recorded and put up. It's great. But I still think that, like, there are other clubs that do weekend meetings and around the country, and they're phenomenally successful. And I think that we could learn lessons from that instead of honestly being kind of antiquated in the way that we think, where it's like, well, it's Tuesday is not a super popular night to do things. It's like, yeah, but traffic in Seattle is a nightmare. And if you're not relatively close, it's impossible. I think the only other club that does weeknight meetings is San Francisco, right? Because Sacramento, you guys are weekends, if I remember right. But San Francisco does it Friday night. And even Friday night is, like, understandable because the next day is not a work night. So if you're going to be at your club meeting till 11 or midnight, that's okay. You sleep in the next day. You don't got to be up early for work. It makes more sense. Whereas, like, Tuesday, you're going to work the next day. The average person is working the next day. And it's just not copacetic for people that have longer drives or just don't want to deal with traffic because, again, work night, family, whatever that may be. And if you have kids, you're less likely to bring kids to a meeting because if you think about it, right, kids need to be ready for school. You want kids to get to sleep at a certain time, all that kind of stuff, right? You're not going to take them to a fish club meeting that you're not going to leave until 10 or 11 p.m. That doesn't mean get home. You're going to leave the fish club meeting that late. That's not necessarily good for your kids getting to sleep and being ready the next day for school, all that kind of stuff. And you might have issues like getting homework done or whatever, right? Not good. Anyway, I want to get on the actual topic. Because I know someone's fighting the good fight, and I probably don't need to actually be there, even though I might have started this fight. Okay, so I'll be looking over here every once in a while because I do have a couple of notes. So I have a few kind of, like, let's say, broader topics. And a lot of this has to do with either stuff I've done previously, and thus maybe it's old enough to where a redo or better updated information, or maybe I've just got better ideas for doing it in an improved way versus stuff maybe it's not frequent. It's not been like a big series or something like that. So the first thing I want to talk about is like fish like business or fish store even tours potentially. So like an example would be we did kind of the story of why Redfish Bluefish, my friend Jason, opened his store in the middle of the pandemic, right? And that was just something where, to me, I liked the story and the concept of it, so it was really fun for me to do. So there's a few others, like there's Aquarium Plant Lab that used to be, I think it was like Northwest Aquarium or Northwest Aquarium Plants, something like that. But Will, he has this really awesome kind of small plant business. There's a relatively new store in the area. I was talking with him before. He had kind of a loss in the family, and we postponed. Like, literally happened the day I was supposed to film. But I'm not going to make him. I'm not going to be like, no, man, you have to film when you're under like emotional duress, right? No, no, that's not right. So we got to put a pause, and then I got in my super busy season. So I've got to get back in touch with him. But this is some examples. Another thing would be like redfish, bluefish. We could go back and see like what's different now compared to when we talked to Jason the first time, right? Because he doesn't necessarily do YouTube anymore. And his business has definitely evolved and changed, and he's learned some lessons, and still very heavy on like Apistos, but he gets some really cool stuff in. So, I'm kind of curious. We'll start kind of there, chat. You guys are welcome to talk. And we could do a fast, like, yes, no. These are kind of videos I'm interested in, is another thing you could jam in chat if you don't have direct comments. Will Swigart, I think that's Will's last name. I'll give you guys a link to his direct channel. Just so you know who I'm talking about for Aquarium Plant Lab. I love Will. He's a super fun guy. I've met him in person a few times. Just really nice dude. We've talked about doing stuff. The first time I was gonna go was like right before he was getting married, and it was like, yeah, I'm not gonna. You got bigger fish to fry. You're getting married. You got a honeymoon coming up. Don't worry about it. And then we both kind of like got super busy. But we eventually need to hook back up. Plus now, weather is getting to be not as nice again. We'll put that in quotation marks. So there's less people traveling out where he is, because where he is kind of a common vacation place, which he lives on Whidbey Island, in a portion of Whidbey Island, which is very popular. Same with redfish, bluefish, also over there. So, I talked about doing him because he's doing things with like a lot of immersed growing of plants, which, I don't necessarily focus on. So I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to learn from Will's channel in general, but also stuff that we could do as far as video content, like kind of telling his story of why he quit his job and went full time to selling aquarium plants. Cause that's kind of cool. Right. Eurofish. I think you guys are going to really like Peter from Eurofish when we do a video with him, just because he's such a cool guy and he's so nice. And like his story is really sweet. But like if you're interested in that kind of stuff, yes, no, just tell me. As I get to any of these broader topics, you can just like slam yes or no in chat. I'm gonna let you decide a lot of things. But, that's kind of one broad category. I could also do things like fish store tours of some of the local fish stores that are in I don't want to say just the Seattle area, but like Washington in general, because there are I drive a decent amount throughout parts of Washington, whether it's I've got family over in the eastern Washington side, my mom's in one place, got aunts and cousins and stuff in another. I go down between here and Portland quite often, so there's a bunch of different stores that are out that way. You've got the peninsula side of Washington State, which actually has a couple of really cool shops out that way. There's a there's a guy who he goes to my club and he works for a small, basically like I think of it like upgraded Petco, but it's a small chain store that actually like does a really good job of taking care of all the animals in their care, right? So that's another one where he messaged me actually. He was like, "Hey, what would it cost to get like you to wear one of our shirts or something?" I was like, "Dude, just make a hat. I'll just wear it for free." And it's like, I don't care. I'll support local business. You don't got to pay me. Get out of here. Just make it in hat form because I'm not a big t-shirt guy. Obviously, like I wear button-up flannel all the time. So there's that kind of category. Now, the next category, this is probably only like one video, but I'm curious if you actually care about it. I think it's interesting personally, but you let me know. So we all know that like I like supporting Aquarium Co-op. They've been kind of my local fish store for a number of years. Well, they have their big retail partner program, and there's a number of stores that have become retail partners with Aquarium Co-ops. And so what that means is they carry a lot of the Aquarium Co-op products so that folks who want to support their local fish store also can get like the quality that is a lot of the Aquarium Co-op products pretty easily. Now, this is mostly in the US. I don't think there's any partner stores in Canada. But as an example, I talked to Super Cichlids, really, really awesome couple that runs this store out in Pennsylvania, I think. I met him at Keystone Clash, and they're a partner store. Similarly, Peter, who owns Eurofish, despite being realistically only about an hour in traffic, but realistically only like 30 minutes away from Aquarium Co-op, is also a partner store. And in talking to both of them, I've got tons of feedback, and I just wonder, because I'm curious about these things, right? Would you, the YouTube Fish Fam, be curious in hearing their stories about whether or not that program has helped them or what? Because to me, it's interesting that you would pick to partner with an online retailer, even though they're a small business. They're not really small anymore, but compared to like say your Petco's and stuff like that, they're small, but they have this huge online presence and people can easily order their products online, and yet you still have local stores partnering with them to carry their products. So I'm just curious if, like, understanding from a business perspective, these small stores, because maybe I know there's a lot of us in the Fish Fam, like not me personally, but there are plenty of people in the Fish Fam who have that dream of opening their own fish store. And talking to these places that either they're brand new stores or established stores that later took on Co-op's product, how that has worked out for them, what they like, what they don't like, trying to be very objective about it, right? Because it's not like I want to just be like, only tell me the good, never the bad. Like, I want to hear the bad too. There has to be some bad, right? There's always something that can be improved. So, I want to see that. To see me tour local Petcos. The only Petco I would actually be like legitimately interested in touring is the one near my house growing up that my cousin used to work at, because it's still there, and that would be something worth going with my cousin to that store, because it'd be interesting, Babe in the Moon. I'm in PDX, so that's the Portland downtown area. We'll drive 30 to 40 minutes one way to the local partner store, but would not normally shop there. I think that speaks pretty highly, right? Desert Fishkeeper. I'm friends with the owner of a store here in California, and he's a partner store. He says they're great to work with. See, like, that's the other thing. I would almost need to, well, I guess I could use their website, but like, I would be curious contacting numbers of them to ask, basically collectively get multiple interviews together and make one longer video of multiple stores. Because I've talked this, man, if you happen to be anywhere near Super Cichlids, which I gotta look them up just in case. I can't. They're in Delaware. There we go. I'm gonna pimp their website just because I love these people. I met the couple that runs Super Cichlids, and they're just phenomenal. if you have a chance to go to the store, do so. Like, if it's an hour drive, maybe even a 2-hour drive, I think it's worth it. From just talking to them and like the number of pictures they showed me of their store, and like they have these fish who are like their mascots. Every betta that they sell has a name. And it might be the most genius business thing I've heard from a small fish store. Because, check this out. When especially kids come up and they want to get a betta, they'll say, I want to adopt John, or I want to adopt Sunshine. I want to adopt this, right? Instead of like, I want to go get this betta over here, it's a name. So it makes it easy for them to go, oh, you want Sunshine? Let's go get Sunshine for you. I'm so happy you're taking Sunshine home. Right? From a perspective of kind of similar to when you go adopt a dog or a cat, right, with a name, there's a little more tie-in to it. I think that's so smart. And the wife of the couple names every single betta when they come in. They have a little "Hello, my name is" sticker. It's just, it's so smart. It's so smart. That is like one of the smartest things I have heard. I actually kind of want to do a bigger interview with just Super Cichlids as a whole, because a lot of what they're doing is super cool. And I talked to them kind of briefly about that, and it's kind of like we're like, yeah, no, we're just happy having fun doing these things. It's like very smart. Does Pet Supplies Plus do that? They might be. They might do. I'd have to check. I may know some people at Pet Supplies Plus. Okay, so there's that. Good to know that you guys are kind of in on the retail partner program thing, because that's a video that to me is very interesting. So knowing that I can have that conversation is good. The next one, I have a feeling this is just an instant yes, but plant tips, like going back, I've talked about it already. I really plan on doing this anyway, but it's more like, the question is, do you guys prefer the shorter, like, Master Aquatic Horticulturalist tips videos that I've done in the past, where it's like somewhere between 5 and 6 tips? They're probably not always. Sometimes it's like, oh, here's a tip specifically for Anubias, and then something for stems, and then something for this. Or do you prefer more like focused, like kind of like how Plants for Profit used to be, where let's talk about just Pogostemons or just Anubias? I obviously, like, we want plant videos, right? I know. Don't worry, they're coming. They're in the works. This is planned. The question is, do you prefer the kind of like shorter video that is not necessarily focused, or do you prefer a more focused video? Because it's really easy to do like 6 to 8 minutes and get a bunch of more random tips, right? Those are fairly easy to put together. Which means that because they're easier to film, I can probably do some slightly nicer B-roll and stuff like that. Whereas focus stuff, I am probably going to be... You're going to have different filming because it'll be kind of more like over the shoulder, working on stuff, things like that. So, okay. So far, a lot of focus. That might be one that goes to like the community tab as a true poll. Or we might try 2 different things. Who knows? Yeah. Nabokov, I got one for you. One video for each plant species type, like talk about the Pogostemons, then the high grows. Yeah, and that's something else I could do, is you could walk through a number of different, I guess, genesis of plants, right? Because you're not at family level, but you're kind of at the genus like you would in fish. Purcell, how do you flower crypts? It depends on the crypt. Some crypts are really easy to flower all year round. Some crypts only flower a certain time of the year. As an example, Nurii. My brain had to remember the species. I could remember things like, oh, like Rose and Maiden and this and that. Like all the variations of Nurii, but not Nurii. Nurii's only flower basically spring. Late spring, early summer. It's the only time they flower. Whereas a lot of your like brownies, so like brownie blue, brownie brown, all that kind of stuff, they will flower a couple of times a year. So it depends. Certain species that are easier to flower, a lot of it comes down to making sure they're getting the right light. Extra red light typically is very helpful for making any plant flower. And then they do need a certain level of micronutrients because like boron, as an example, is helpful in flowering. So making sure that plenty of your micros are available. And because we're dealing with an epiphyte, it means you need them in the water column, right? But that's usually, or I'm sorry, I just said like Nurii talking about a crypt and not a Boos. And then set Boos when we're asking about crypts. Brain everywhere. For crypts flowering, very few crypts actually flower underwater. Most of them need to be immersed. For Boos, certain Booses only flower one time a year. Others will flower multiple. See, this is what happens when my brain is all scattered. I start conflating things together and losing my mind. It's all up here somewhere. It's just kind of a jumbled mess. Legion Aquatic, what's the key for Java fern growth? Because my old house, I couldn't grow it no matter what, dosing potassium, but my new house, it grows like a weed, super healthy. So very typically, when people struggle with Java fern, it tends to be that they have super hard water. Java fern can do okay in like moderately hard water, but realistically, it really grows like crazy in softer water. It tends to prefer slightly softer water because it's easier to absorb those nutrients. And because Java fern, being an epiphyte, is not really, really demanding on its uptake compared to, like, say, a stem plant, it can struggle fighting other plants to get some of the certain things it needs to be, like, super happy. And sometimes it's really easy to put way too much light on it or not enough light on it to get it to really thrive. There's kind of this weird median balance you need to sit in to really get Java fern thriving. I'm very lucky. I have soft water, and Java fern with soft water and a very small amount of CO2 just goes like hog wild usually. So Java fern's really easy for me. I'm like cheating. Interesting. Your new house has much harder water. It might just be getting better of the nutrients it wants, if that makes sense. Stephen P. Nurii Rose and Maiden is the only crypt to ever flower for you. That's because you're not very good. No, I'm kidding. Basically, the only crypts that I've had flower submerged are all Nurii species. So I've had regular Nurii, I've had Rose and Maiden flower. I haven't gotten the, what is it? Like neon green or green aura. Trying to remember which. There's a newer green variation, luminous green. I had to look it up. I haven't had a luminous green flower yet, and that's been the one that for me that struggled the most of the Nurii. Usually I'm really good with Nurii, and that one has been very finicky, put that way. D-Law, speaking of Pokestamon, my octopus plant is growing like a weed, but the leaves are all curly. Is there something wrong? I think this got mentioned, but usually when you have a lot of curling in your leaves, especially if it's like, let's say this is the leaf flat and it's curling in like this, right? Or it's curling up at the edges and not necessarily purely this, because when the leaves get long and whippy, they will curl a little bit. Usually curling is a result of a calcium deficiency. So just adding a little bit of extra calcium helps. Cancer Train, how does underwater pollination work? Kind of doesn't. Most of the plants that will flower underwater are either something where pollination isn't necessary for it to propagate, or it's something like a crypt where it's housed inside a spathe and it protects the actual flower. And when that thing opens up, there's kind of no way for the pollen to go anywhere and pollinate because of the water column. You don't have, animals doing that work for you. Okay, the last, obviously we want plant stuff, but I wanted to ask you that, guys. The last thing I want to ask you guys about, and then we'll go into truly full and open questions here. Do you guys want to see me review a lot of the terrible products that are sold on Amazon? And let me give you an example. I get easily 10 plus emails a week from random Chinese companies about who knows what product they're selling on Amazon. And a lot of times they have nothing to do with fish. But when there are ones that are fish related, or maybe even like home plant adjacent, I guess that's the other thing we could look at, because maybe you could use like a home plant light on a fish tank in some way, shape, or form. Do you guys want me to actually like start saying yes to some of this junk and watch it and like rip it apart, so to speak? Because most of it's going to be junky, right? And the only thing that made me think about this is my good friend Alex, right? Fishery recently did one in that Cactoily or whatever the heck it is. The monitor for aquariums, and they reached out to me like 3 months ago, and I was like, no, I don't want this thing. But a lot of it is like, I get reached out by so many companies that are like the same generic template email of random garbage I usually am not interested in. But there's been a time where like I've seen even like big creators like Marquez Brownlee, MKBHD, who's in the tech space, who like just said yes to everything for a month and then brought it all in like one video because it was kind of silly. I'm just curious if you guys would want to see something like that every once in a while. Maybe we do it once, see how you guys like it. Because I could probably figure out a way to like monkey around with a bunch of things. I much prefer testing like reasonable, the things that we're more reasonably likely to purchase for an aquarium. But there is a curious part of me that's like, just how bad is some of this like really cheap Chinese stuff? So yeah. All right. That's kind of like the 4 categories I wanted to talk about. I guess the only thing left would be like, should I do non-fish content? So that isn't necessarily like, I've kind of joked that at some point I might like do a very casual channel on one of my other hobbies, which is bourbon, right? And there are at least 2 people in the chat that I know who are also nerds like me and like the brown water. But more like, I've done some other things about like stuff that happens to do with like my career field in the past, where I've had people, I've received emails. I still occasionally get them where people ask me like, how would I break into tech, or like, is getting into tech worth it? So these are things that are not fish related, but they are related to stuff that are adjacent to things I know. So I'm curious, do you guys care about that kind of stuff? You can say no. If you just want it to be all fish stuff, totally understand. Kind of the point of my channel, right? It's fish stuff. But if you do want to see that kind of stuff, if I were to do like whiskey related content, it'd probably be an entirely separate channel, and it would not be, it would never interfere with fish stuff. It would always take backseat to fish stuff. But whiskey stuff's really easy to film. Brown water with Bentley. I know a few people are in that camp. There's some of you that don't drink, so like I respect that. Don't get me wrong. If you do drink, always drink responsibly. I never have more than one pour a night, unless I've taken many nights off in preparation for like a tasting event or something. And you're doing little teeny tiny sips, but you're trying lots of little stuff. When I was in Kentucky, though, that was different. That was vacation, and I had a designated driver. But then afterward, I took a break. It was like, we're gonna let the body come back down to normal, you know? Sid Miller, bourbon always interferes with my fish tanks. Oh no, cask aged filter gravy. Oh no. By the way, Leo, thank you for your membership chat. If you happen to be in the member Discord, you've probably seen Leo posting all sorts of pictures and little videos of his new Cross River puffer. That's dangerous, man. This is dangerous. Because every time I see that adorable little like water puppy, I think to myself, I cannot let my wife see this because she will want one. Thankfully, she just likes the loaches. So if I just get her loaches, I think I'm safe. Brown water with Bentley sounds awesome. Lee, respect you. Oh man, I got very very lucky. And earlier you guys saw Simone Barkeep. That's my friend. He has a whiskey related channel. I met him through that in the area. He's an awesome dude. But I got really lucky and found this like basically incredibly hard to find bottle in Washington, which is Maker's Mark cellar aged. I know I'm going off, but and I shared it with him and one of our other buddies the other night, and like John Ebsen, who's in chat, will be getting a little, what we call a sample. You make a little bottle, has a little bit of it in there. Whiskey and Wapogas, man. You guys have way better naming than me. I worked in marketing, and some of your names are significantly or funnier than anything I thought of. Although I doubt a lot of outside the fish world would know what a Wapoga was. But yeah. Had that, it was, if you are a brown water fan, you get a chance to try the cellar aged Maker's Mark, do so. It is so good. It is so good. All right. Now we can go, if for some reason I haven't answered your fish question, at Bentley Pasco makes it much easier for me to see those things. And then we'll just do, we'll do question and answers from here on out. We've babbled about a lot of random stuff so far. Made me laugh, all that kind of that stuff. Drunk on rainbows and whiskey. That's not bad. Although I don't ever get drunk. I'm pretty responsible with my drinking. I don't like... I'm weird. I don't like feeling like I'm losing control of my mental faculties, if that makes sense. So like, I'm such a like weirdo that I like being there the whole time, because I feel like if I start doing that, I start losing the fun part of it, which is enjoying like how it tastes and things like that. But I don't know. I'm weird. What do you want? I'm glad you guys like the Rainbow Fish Talk. I'm working on editing the Plant Talk this week. For information, so that video that's an hour and like 15 minutes long, right? That took me like 7 hours to edit. It takes a long time to edit those long videos and do them right. So we're doing that again this week. I've already done like 3 hours of it. It's a lot of work. Lee, anyone working with Melantani Ewer? So I had reached out to Gary Lang because he lost his Ewers, and a little while back I had tracked down somebody who does have Ewers. I need to go back and get in touch with them. I don't know if they are actively selling fish, but I was trying to find somebody that I could get Ewers back to myself, because I like them a lot. So I'm trying to get Ewers back after losing them in the heat wave of doom a couple of years ago here in Washington, which, for reference, I know some of you live in much hotter parts of the country, but Washington typically doesn't get above like 90, low 90s in the summer. So when we had a like 4-day stretch where the cooler day was 115 degrees at its top, and the like at the evening overnight it was only 95, right? That is really unusual for Washington. And Washington in general is not equipped to handle high heat like that. Like there's not a lot of people with air conditioning. I have air conditioning in my house, but it's more energy efficient, so it can't handle really big temperature swings like that. It can only bring it down so much. And yeah, once it got that hot, like my fish room was very, very hot. And there's a lot of rainbows that do not do well with getting into like the mid and high 90s water temperature. And so I lost a number of them. It sucked. The Ewers were the ones that actually suffered the most. They, out of all my fish, they and my what is it? Cali Beerus were the other ones. I lost a lot of Cali Beerus too. I had a pretty big colony of Cali Beerus, and by the time it was over, I had like 3. Yeah, and then it's similarly, right? It's the opposite in Texas. When it snows there, it's like it's an apocalypse. Honestly, in Seattle, when it snows here, it's an apocalypse. You get a 1/4 inch of snow and people panic because we're very hilly. And again, usually we don't really get much snow, so there's not a lot of infrastructure designed to handle snow, like plows and road salters and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, we're just idiots here in Washington. It's really what it comes down to. Aquarium Fun, what's your favorite smoky scotch? None of them. I don't like smoky scotches. I prefer, so I'm not big on like Isleys. I prefer Speyside when it comes to scotch. So I like your fruitier stuff like Macallan, mostly Macallan. Macallan 15 is probably my favorite when it comes to scotches of what I've had, but I don't typically drink a lot of scotch. I prefer bourbon in general. And some Tennessee whiskey. Like when I was out of the Keystone Clash, I got to try the Chattanooga whiskey. It stuff's really good. Really good. Oh, you talking about the fish back here? Yeah, I need to get him out of there. Soon. Soon, soon, soon. Legion Aquatics. I was given a betta with Gilburn to try and revive. I've given it salt, clean water, Maricin, but no change after 2 weeks. It won't eat or swim. At what point is euthanasia the best option? You might be at that point. Because if it's still not eating or swimming, it's basically just burning down what it has left. It's kind of given in at that point. So you might be looking at, a little clove oil in a small container and helping it go its way peacefully. Especially with gill burn, because depending on how bad the like ammonia burn or whatever is to the gills, it may never recover in the grand scheme of things. Coro works. Carefully getting around those words. Respect it. Sid Miller, going from Australia where we regularly get 40 CE plus, so 105, to North Dakota when people were dying when it got over like 85 was a trip. Yeah, just, in certain places where your weather just inherently doesn't get there. It's only really the last 5 years or so where we've even, with some regular occurrence, in summers seen like over 100-degree temperatures for even just a couple days. And even that is like, wow, that's so weird for the Seattle area. Seattle areas were like, there's like 2 weeks where it might get to like 92, 93. And you might have like one day that got to 95 and you're like, wow, that's going to be so hot. And then most of the time in the summer, it's in high 70s, low 80s. That's Seattle. And it's really only like a 2 month stretch where the weather's kind of like that. And most of the rest of the year, it's pretty like moderate 50s, 60s. And you got a small window of time in the winter where you're going to get your cold temperatures, but usually when it's super cold, it also doesn't have enough humidity in the air to actually give you snow. It's very dry. But yeah. So Seattle's a weird place. Make sure I haven't missed a question. Again, at Bentley Pasco makes it super easy for me to see them. Guppy Girl, have you done a series on plant nutrient deficiencies? Oh, so yes, but no. I have done in the Fertilizer 101 series, I talk specifically about deficiencies tied to each of the different nutrients when I'm trying to kind of teach like what makes up our fertilizers. But I haven't necessarily done a video on like, say, what do macro deficiencies look like in plants? What do micro deficiencies, or like what does a calcium deficiency look like in a plant? You know, I haven't necessarily done that. That might be something worth doing as a series too. Probably don't need to do like as granular as like what does calcium deficiency look like? What does iron deficiency look like? You probably like branch some of these things together, you know, or just one larger video on plant deficiencies in general. But I've kind of inadvertently done it with some like homemade graphics to show things off of what it would look like as far as a drawing is concerned, as opposed to necessarily showing it on a leaf, because sometimes it's hard to find good photography of those deficiencies. Scuba Steve, did you call the taste the best part? Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I prefer the taste of all things more than anything else. I'm not a person that has my beverages to get drunk. I actually don't like being intoxicated. It's not my jam. Just who I am. Not my thing. Legion Aquatics, where did you get the koi picture? That one. Always see in the background, I really like it. My mom made it for me. So that's what's called like a diamond point or whatever. It's done with little beads. And my mom found a pattern of a koi picture and made that for me because she knows that I love fish. And that's why I used to have a like video game related wall scroll behind me all the time. If you look far enough back, you'll find that, right? And as soon as that got made, I took the wall scroll down and put that up instead because my mommy made it for me. Nabokov fan, never touched it before and waiting for it to arrive, but any tips on how to or how to advise for boosts? I've kept Anubias and ferns, only epiphytes, Hygropenidifida. So with boosts, especially when it comes to attaching, if you're going to use superglue, don't try to superglue the rhizome. Just get enough to get some of the roots to glue in place. Don't coat the roots entirely, but if you try to get the rhizome in there because they have a thinner rhizome than Anubias, you'll kill the plant. Boost likes a little bit more light than Anubias, typically. So usually like medium light is good. There are some that prefer low light if you want that like perfect color, but realistically, if you just want good health, medium light is pretty good. Other than that, I have noticed that Boost does better attached to wood than when it's attached to rock. In general, I have seen more success attaching my Boosts to wood over rock. But you can, if you friction fit them into rock, they will also do well because they kind of grow like that naturally. And that would be kind of like my early level stuff. Other than that, like you just want a little bit of flow to make sure detritus doesn't build up on top of the leaves, and you should be fine. Most of them are pretty forgiving and relatively stable as a plant once they're in an aquarium. Nabokov fan. One good video might be an explanation of the nutrient deficiency chart that people always throw around. I have that thing in all of my plant talks because it's such a useful tool. But yes, I could totally walk through a more focused video talking about how to use those charts and why they matter. Is that a chunky SAE in the back tank? Yeah, there's one kind of chunky SAE, not as big as some of the other ones in downstairs in like the retirement tank. There's like some small whales down there. They're very large adults, but that one's like maybe about yay big, and pretty healthy. It is. I need to move it. I've got a tank I want it to go in. I just haven't had a focus on catching fish lately. Bob Purcell, will the Kraken or Seahawks do better this year? I think the Seahawks. The Kraken have a lot to get together. Right now, they're certainly not playing as well as they did last year. They have speed, but it feels like their coordination has gone down. So yeah. I think they need to fix whatever they got going, and maybe they can. It's early enough in the season; they can certainly do that better. But the Seahawks just look like a better team in general. They were good last year. They're relatively good this year. There's a few small things that need to be fixed. You've got some injury stuff on the offensive line, but other than that, we're a pretty solid team. It's going to be tough against some of the absolute best teams in the NFL, but I still think we can put together a playoff capable season. I put a Lee's cleaning claw on the end of my Python. No more dumb fish trying to ride the gravel back. It's pretty smart. Cash put him. I'm about to start my first real aquascape in a 14-gallon cube. Have you ever tried a dry start method for moss on rocks or a carpet? I personally have not tried the dry start method. I'm not big on it. Mostly, I like having my plants submerged because dry start, with rare exceptions, means that you're going to have some level of conversion when you fully submerge everything. However, I have a number of friends who are more aquascape oriented, and they always start dry start. Especially if they're trying to do a carpet, they use the dry start to make the carpet really get locked in early before they flood the tank. They just make sure that it's like super humid. So they're in there really spraying lots of water, making sure that it has very high humidity so that they don't lose things in the conversion process. I hope that helps you, Cash. Hold on. I need to look at what Sid's asking about because the name is familiar, but I need to see it. I'm a very visual person. So this is a type of fern. Interesting. Can it stay fully submerged? It would seem like something that needs to be... Huh, that's interesting. The name's familiar. I've never kept that particular fern. I mean, it looks like it's pretty basic, but I imagine you just need to make sure that it establishes itself well, probably attaching it to wood rather than burying it. I've never kept it, so I can't really give you good experience-based advice. Legion Aquatics, did Corey send you one of those new jet lifters to test? No. I basically never get anything to test from Aquarium Co-op until it is released to the public. The only thing that I've had in the past to test was one of the various iterations of the lights years and years ago. And that was like the one time they sent me something before it was a finished product. Everything else has always been after it's been released to everyone else. I'm not that not that in close with the co-op. I'm just kind of a customer there. And Corey and I, when we get to talk, we talk friendly. That's about it. How to control your tank crash for soft water slash acidic breeders carefully. Mostly it's water changing. You also can you can have carbonate hardness while also having soft water, aka not having high general hardness. So it comes down to having some level of carbonate hardness to maintain that pH, but not having so much general hardness that it creeps your pH too high. That's really the long and short. There's a few other things you can do, right? Using things like your leaf litter or various other botanicals, wood to get other kind of humic substances into the water column, things like that will naturally kind of bring your pH down, make it more acidic. Yeah. There's ways. Mel, I still have to fert my jungle tank. It's a 29 gallon with 6 Pandagaras, 1 male Wonderkilly, 10 Ottos, 3 German Blue Rams, 3 Guppies, a Mystery Snail, 2 Amanos, and 2 Neorites. I don't know how people get plants to grow. Well, even with a fish load, if you only have fish waste, you might not necessarily... Oh, you still have no fertilizer. Well, I mean, even with fish waste, you still can be missing some of the other nutrients it needs to help the plants flourish and thus grow the way they do. In a lot of other tanks, like I fertilize all my tanks. All my tanks that have plants in them get fertilization in some way, shape, or form. Some get a lot less than others, but all of them get something. So just keep that in mind. I don't think that realistically you can have, outside of certain plants, perfect long-term health with no fertilizer whatsoever. Wei Wang. I came to brag that I got some Kalitawa eggs from Gary Lang 10 days ago. Nice. Nice. I hope you have immense success with them. Because it's a really cool fish. It's a really cool fish. It's very pretty. It's very colorful. It stays small, so it can be in smaller tanks. It and the Myricide are like the two hottest rainbows really out there right now, because they're both small and they're both beautiful. How's the new job? New job's actually been really good. We still need to hire some folks. Just I don't think it's necessarily in my field for QA, but because it's Halloween, we have a bunch of small events we're doing. So that's had me a little on my toes because I've had a lot of short, day before something needs to go out, a short let's just test this to make sure we understand what's going well and what's not going well, and trying to spot fix it really fast. So that's a little it's a little fast and loose for my personal preference, but that's a startup company, right? Startup companies are going to be fast and loose. Are we doing perfect? No. Can we stay at this pace and still do good? Yes. But is there a better solution? I think so, and I'm trying to slowly build those habits so that it's not always by the seat of your pants, and maybe a little more structured when it comes to utilizing my skills to help make the product we're working on better. I can't remember. Did I tell you guys the company I work for? It's been long enough. I feel like I should. I thought I did, but then again, I don't know if I have. Can't remember. That's how wild the work has been. Is I don't even remember if I told you guys the actual company name. I told you I had a new job and stuff like that, but Bumper Cell, how often should I use root tabs if I have aqua soil? Do I need to? Heavy on crypts. If you're going heavy on crypts, I would probably try to do that, especially if it's like the whole tank. If you have just a small section, maybe you don't need to do it as often. Maybe like once a month. You might put in some tabs because with root tabs, it's a mixture of like mineralized clay and some of your nutrients. So it just makes it available, and as that stuff gets into the water column, it kind of sits a little more stable as opposed to like a liquid fertilizer. But it still will be made available, and your substrate can put some of it up. But more importantly, if you put it at the root base, the crypts are going to get to it way more effectively. Brian Radovich, 2 weeks ago, I announced in Dan's live stream that my Habrosus were breeding. That's awesome. This week, I lost 2. That sucks. Not sure why. They look okay, and the Hastatus are doing very well. So you have Hastatus and Habrosus in the same one? Interesting. I mean, if they're breeding, something's right. I mean, the only thing I can think of is like, are they older? Like, how long have you had them? Because like the smaller Cories don't have super long lifespans. So the bigger body ones can have some pretty longer ones. Zen Ginger, I think we heard about the maybe with Niantic, something like that, but I don't know if we heard about the current company. Okay, yeah. Real briefly, I mean, we're kind of at time, but let me see here. Do I have a window open that isn't stuff I can't show? No, everything. Hold on. I'll get one. It's like realizing that like every window I have open for work is all stuff I can't show. It's all stuff that's in active development. So I work for a company called Mona. Our website is monaverse.com. So Mona is the easiest thing to think about is like a metaverse company, but not metaverse in the way that like, Zuckerbot is trying to do. More like, think about like 3D experiences, right? If you think about like creating more 3D oriented art experiences. So it's very creator focused. There's a big focus on trying to help, whether it's some of the other companies that we have partnerships with that are in these creative spaces. Some of them are more NFT oriented companies, and I know people don't like NFTs, but I'm not big on them either. But I like what we are doing as a platform, trying to build this thing that's more interesting and allows creative, artistic people to build cool, fun experiences. Kind of these like mix of like a social media, social platform, and kind of creative, immersive experiences. I like that. I would love to get to a point of where I could, with my company's platform, build like a virtual fish room tour. Where you could go to like, if I did enough filming and things like that, you could kind of like virtually go to Gary Lang's fish room or Master Breeder Dean's fish room and tour it on your own, in your own time. And we can get there. The tech is very possible. That's the cool thing. Now, temporarily, we'll see how long this happens. Mona is purely web browser based. So it's all done you don't need a specialized device. You don't have to have, one of those crazy VR rigs or anything like that. It's all web browser based right now, which has limitations, mind you, but it's cool. We've had some cool stuff with, like live DJs in these events that are playing music and kind of like virtual parties, so to speak. And it's been really fun. There's like a couple of games that are up right now for Halloween. We've got a third one that's coming relatively soon, but it's kind of like, it's kind of like a more stylized, immersive experience. And I would love to like, maybe at a better time, like build a small video that lets you like walk through a space and something that I find interesting, but we're at time. But yeah, that's the company I work for. We're small. We're only like 15 employees. But it's really fun. It's been really fun so far. I work with a lot of really awesome people. And just, yeah, I've been having fun. But you can, in a web browser on a computer, is this almost like Second Life? There's actually a lot of parallels to Second Life. It's not exactly Second Life, because Second Life is a standalone app, right? But I think if you've had experience with Second Life in the past, there's a lot of parallels to Second Life. So that was the first thing I thought about when I was in my interview process, was like, this kind of has a Second Life feel. I had friends that were really into Second Life. It wasn't really my jam personally, but there's a bigger focus on creation stuff. And yeah, for those who are familiar with Second Life, you're going to be like, that sounds a lot like Second Life. Yeah, just kind of newer, a little more powerful on the platform side, because like Second Life is kind of old and dated. But that's what I do. I break our software for a living. It's fun. But yeah, there's that. Said Miller, I bought some Java moss off someone with M. dubuli. How long would it take for any hidden eggs to hatch? So typically the rainbow fish eggs need about 14 days. Can be as long as 21, can be as early as 10. One of the things that I found that kind of triggers the change is if you pull that plant or whatever out of water, just not super long, maybe like a minute or two, to where a good amount of the water drips off, and then you put it back in your tank and you get that fresh water on it. It kind of speeds the process along. Add some urgency, so to speak. Alyssa, I have a cousin who still does Second Life and is a DJ somewhere in there. That's cool. Yeah, we had this this DJ who's called Buffalo, who did an event, it was like 2 weeks ago, and his set was awesome. Really awesome. Like, I just had it on in the background while I was doing other work, because his music and his set were so well done. And as someone who used to DJ, I can appreciate those kind of things, right? Just a really well put together set is fun. I almost tried to contact her and just be like, hey, dude, do you have that recorded anywhere? Because I just want to like jam to that constantly. Yeah. Luke Wang. New Cryptochordata, a Rosanervig, and a Nymphea species, Puerto Maldonado, coming my way. I'm actually really curious on the Nymphea. Let me know how those go for you, because that's interesting to me. Wei Wang, how many different rainbow species are you keeping these days? Okay, this is going to be my last question, because we're already kind of over time. Right now, I have Running River, obviously. I have Bozemanaya Tinjo, Upper Tor River Chilatharina. I have one Cato River that was a random baby that's been growing up, and it's beautiful. I have Melanitania picta, a couple Melanitania frederici, Parva, Kamaka, some Blaheri. I kind of have I don't have a ton of them right now. And he's very interested in getting the Ooters. Oh, text to speech. I have a lot less than I want to. Oh, I also have like some Centonienses. I lost a lot of stuff in a couple of big heat waves over 2 years. So eventually, I would like to get back to the point of rebuilding kind of my set of rainbows by doing lots of individual tanks. So the next like rainbow fish tank I'm building, which is going to be the Aquascape with my wife, that's going to have the Aves Creek in them. And then after that, I might go a little crazy on some really specific fish. Oh, I also have Alani Wapogas. I have some Alani Wapogas lying around too. But my Upper Tor Rivers might be going might be leaving me to go to somebody else because several of the guys that keep Upper Tor Rivers in Seattle lost theirs over the summer. And I have the last like reasonable sized colony, so I might be sending them to a friend to breed because he actually can like raise eggs and stuff, to kind of make sure that all of us still have that fish because we all really like that fish a lot up in this area. So my group might be disappearing to help other people. But yeah, that's what I've got right now. Not as much as I've had in the past. Oh, I also have I do have like a female Etnaensis and some Rubro striata that are in the retirement tank, but those don't really count. I have to think. Like I forget some of the random stuff that's in the retirement tank. But yeah, that's kind of what I got right now. I gotta make some changes, get some tanks up, stuff like that, and then I'll get some extra bows going around the house. Yeah, gang, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. I appreciate all of your wonderful feedback. Be looking forward to my plant talk from Keystone Clash this Saturday. That'll be the video. I think we're gonna do we might do a premiere for it where I just sit and chat with everybody while you enjoy that, and then pretty soon we'll go back to the your filter sucks, your filter is awesome series, and then all new videos based on what we talked about tonight. So with that being said, thank you all so much for watching, and as always, stay awesome. Shanny's over there sleeping. She was just like, that's all I got. You pulled me into the chair. If you missed the start of the stream, watch the replay. You'll get to see Shantoto on camera. She's looking pretty good. She's a very happy girl. Bye, everybody.